didn't do much over the weekend because I didn't want to go out. There was so much shooting going on. 15 people shot and killed, 60 wounded here in the U.S. But we're not going to talk about that today. The weekend's over. Let's go over this way and do a environmental update. All right, another warning from NOAA. NOAA says we are racing at top speed towards global catastrophe. CO2 levels 420.99 parts per million in May. That is an increase of 1.8 parts per million over 2021. The science is irrefutable. Humans are altering our climate in ways that our economy and our infrastructure must adapt to, or we will all end up being dead very shortly. It takes 50 years for heat to catch up with CO2 levels. So let's talk about that for a minute, because that's pretty important. So we're living the CO2 levels of 50 years ago at the longest. It can be 30 years and up to 50 years. But that's where we're at. So we're still in 320, 330, 360, and we're up into the 420. So you can just imagine once we get caught up, the heat gets caught up to our time frame now, what life will be like on this earth. Weather impacts are steady warming, droughts, wildfires, heavy rains equaling floods, and more tropical storms such as hurricanes. More greenhouse gases increasing sea surface temperatures, rising sea levels, and increasing carbon in the ocean equals seawater more acidic. In other words, we're acidifying the oceans, which will make it harder for marine organisms with shells to survive. The acid eats the shells away. With human activity, this has raised more than 1.5 trillion tons of greenhouse gases since 1950s. That's just from the 1950s. Can you imagine what's in our future? As soon as this all gets caught up, 400 parts per million equals 7 degrees Fahrenheit higher than in pre-industrial levels. Let's not forget it takes 50 years to get caught up. The world's wealthiest 1% emit more than twice as much CO2 than the poorest 50% of humanity. It's depressing that we lack the collective willpower to slow the relentless rise of CO2. And that's what NOAA is saying. And we keep seeing these warnings over and over and over that we're about to go into catastrophe because the temperature rise is going to be catching up to us quite quickly. As soon as the temperature starts seeing the 400s, boy, are we in trouble. And there's not much we can do about it. We're going to have some kind of infrastructure that can cool everybody down. But with 8 billion people, I don't see how that's possible. It's just not going to happen. So we're going to see massive die-offs of humans and other animals on the planet pretty soon. And it doesn't seem like nobody wants to do anything about that either. If people are dying, so be it, they say. At least it's not me. Unbelievable what's happening on the planet. And because of the climate change, how humans' perceptions of things is changing so rapidly. So what is it that we can do about all this? Well, we can get our numbers down, for one thing, from 8 billion to 1 to 2 billion people. And then at that point, we'd have to reduce our electricity use and our fossil fuel use to where we don't have the lights on during the nighttime. It looks pretty dark out, so we're not using up what precious little electricity that we have. Because right now, there's no way that we have enough materials in the way of raw materials, rare earths, to make enough electricity to sustain the nighttime activity that humans have now. Especially at 8 billion. We're just way too much for that. So we're going to have to learn to live like Cuba and North Korea, where we go to bed when it gets dark and we get up when the light comes out. And that's the way we're going to have to live, and that's the way Mother Nature had intended it to begin with altogether. And it's going to take a lot to do that. And we're going to lower our numbers one way or another, whether it's by force or it's voluntary. But that's just the way that is. We have to learn to live with our planet and not against it. Humans are going to have to learn to adapt. And we're going to have to learn to adapt very, very quickly, because if we do not, it'll be forced upon us. And all the gun deaths here in the U.S. will seem like nothing compared to all the deaths by climate change. So, your comments on all this, your ups, your downs, the new subscribers, and until next time.